You are listening to the Political Periscope, a weekly podcast brought to you by Radio Wnet. Interviews on international politics, security, geopolitics, economy, and more. Every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Today's guest of the Political Periscope is Akhmed Zakayev, Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria.
Political Periscope.
Why still so few Chechens fight on Ukrainian side in Ukraine?
But why? Why do you think there's so few of them? Do you have some sort of information from the militaries?
Yes, we have information that there is more on the other side.
I have completely different information. And by the way, confirmed by the Ukrainian side, there are more Chechens fighting there than in the Russian army against Ukraine.
What can be done with Kadyrov?
Well, it depends on the situation, on how the war in Ukraine ends. The fates of Putin and Kadyrov are absolutely mutually interlinked. The fate of one depends on another's. They are bound by blood, Chechen blood, now Ukrainian blood. I believe there is an international tribunal awaiting them.
Does Poland help?
We have many friends in Poland who help Chechens. Besides, it can be said that Poland is the only state which, for all those years of occupation of our state, has supported Chechens in every way. It is also the only state which, on the level of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, condemned the assassination of Chechen President Aswan Maskhadov. That's why we are grateful to Polish people and the Polish government.
Would it be possible to establish in Poland, with cooperation with Polish government, some kind of Chechen Ichker house, similar to a Belarusian house in Poland?
I believe it will happen. Until now it was too early for it, but I believe that in the nearest future we can realize it. The thing is that already 15 years ago we had a piece of land where the house could have been built. Common Chechen-Polish village. Common organization, Polish-Chechen Friendship, was the owner of the land. We just didn't have financial possibility to start the construction. But now the situation around Chechen subject has changes. Everything in the world is changing. I believe we will manage to accomplish this project.
Изменилась ситуация и вокруг чеченской темы, и вообще в мире все меняется. И я уверен в том, что нам удастся реализовать этот проект.
What can be done about the image of Chechens in Poland today? We mostly associate them with bandits, criminals, or with Russian Kadyrov.
It is the result of anti-Chechen Russian propaganda, which was most unfortunately followed by Western journalists. They caught everything that was coming from Russian propagandists. This image is one of Putin's victories and one of the main goals that Putin gave his propagandists: discrimination of Chechens and demonization of Chechens as a whole nation.
Это было дискриминация чеченцев и демонизация чеченцев как целостной нации. Я категорически
I am categorically opposed to idealization of Chechens. However, I am also categorically opposed to demonizing them. I will tell you something different. I have different data. Proportionally to the percentage of Chechens among immigrants in the European Union, they cause far less problems than any other ethnic migrant group. I know it, as I am in direct contact with structures controlling this process in Poland, Belgium, France, and Germany. That's why I think that this image created in the mass media, the image of Chechens as gangsters and bandits, in any case on the level of structures, professional structures and administration of these countries, they understand that Chechens present smaller problems than other ethnic groups. The image could be drawn from the fact that Chechens study at the most prestigious universities. They finish schools, especially in generation which was born here, in Europe. Those are completely different people, Europeans, people who grew in free countries and have absolutely integrated with European countries where they live. That's why the first wave could be considered the lost generation, people who were taken away from their home and were not integrated with their countries. It causes some problems, and especially amongst those people, someone dies, someone got radicalized, went towards radical Islam. Some of them went to Syria and died there. And today, basically, I think that the change of the image depends mostly on those Chechens who grew here. And it is really happening now.
от дома и в то же время не были как бы интегрированы вот в эти страны. Это немного представляло собой проблему. И вот эти люди, в принципе, кто погиб, кто был настроен на радикально-исламские такие фундаментальные взгляды, некоторые из них выехали в Сирию, там погибли. И сегодня, в принципе, я думаю, что изменение имиджа чеченцев зависит во многом от тех чеченцев, которые выросли здесь. И это происходит реально сейчас.
What should be done to let Chechens live in Chechnya? They are living freely in Europe, but they are not living in Chechnya. Is there a possibility to open the second Caucasus front to start the war there?
Чтобы чеченцы жили на своей.
In order for Chechens to live on their own land, in their own country, it is necessary, in the first place, to deoccupy the country. It is the same for millions of Ukrainians who are today in Europe. The main condition of their return to the motherland is the deoccupation of the country and cease of the war in Ukraine's territory. The same conditions apply for Chechens. I guarantee you that the Chechens have already opened the second front. What do I mean? Exactly because of our structure. Our administration exists. This work that we are doing here in the West as continuators of Chechen statehood, thanks to the people building on Chechen statehood, thanks to our movement, our structures, Putin is forced to keep in Caucasus, in our region, 150,000 military grouping. I assure you that if not what we are doing today, this 150,000 military grouping would be in Ukraine. Therefore, with full conviction, we say that we have opened second front. Now, the main question is that in order to implement all of it, we need political support of the international community. What am I talking about? Poland or Ukraine or other European states should acknowledge the fact of the occupation of our country. And when the Chechens hear that their tragedy, despite that so many years have passed, finally finds the response and comprehension in the West, they will be ready to change the format of the authority existing in the Chechen Republic. That is exactly why it is important for us to participate in such forums, participation and meetings with media, so the Chechens, we are doing it primarily for our Chechens who are under occupations, so that they understand that the world has paid attention to Chechen tragedy. The thing is that until now, we have been left alone with this injustice, with this tragedy, until the start of the war in Ukraine, of Putin's aggression. But today, the situation has changed. This is why we say that Chechens will be fully ready to change the form of government and deoccupy their country, but it will be directly related to how the war in Ukraine ends.
Из этой трагедии до начала украинской войны, до начала войны Путина, агрессии Украины. Но сегодня изменилась ситуация, и поэтому мы говорим, что чеченцы будут готовы полностью изменить формат власти и деоккупировать свою страну. Но это напрямую будет связано с тем, как закончится война в Украине.
Are you ready to cooperate with every Chechen to establish the government, war council, to restitute Ichkeria on immigration? How broad can be the cooperation?
Просто вот чтобы вы понимали, что...
So you understand well. Today we have official administrative structures which preserve the judicial foundation of Chechen statehood, starting with Joar Dudayev. And we keep connections on Chechen territory. In clandestine conditions, there are local and regional authorities there. We have also an appropriate system of contact with the diaspora and those in the West. They also, despite being in Europe, are burdened with what is happening in Chechnya. They cannot speak and appear publicly like me or other persons because they have relatives back home. You know Putin's method, how they put pressure on their relatives who stayed at home because of the public appearances of our political members here in the West. That's why we have such troubles. We maintain the contact and communications with all the Chechens, though.
Вести и выступать, потому что у них дома есть родственники. Вы знаете методы путинские, они каким образом они оказывают давление на родственников, которые находятся дома из-за каких-то политических проявлений здесь на Западе их, нашими членами правительства. Поэтому вот этой сложности у нас есть, но контакты и коммуникации со всеми чеченцами у нас имеются.
Are you willing to cooperate with those who fought in Syria with so-called emirs?
В Сирии находились люди, которые...
In Syria, there were people who were directed there through deceitful aspects of Islam radicalism who were lied to, but also those who have fulfilled Kremlin's will, exactly in order to create the image of Chechens as transnational terrorists of radical Islam. Partially, it succeeded, but if we look at percentage, it is insignificant. That's why those who have survived and understood it, first of all, they try to soothe the relations with our structures. It happens in Turkey, it happens in Ukraine. There, in ranks of Chechen combatants, are those who were in Syria, but they understood what is happening, what happened to those people. We will find a common language, and we are ready to act with them to lead the occupation of our country. But those groups that at the time created so-called Caucasian Emirates, they tried to replace the Chechen state, creating the image of transnational terrorists. Besides, this organization was enlisted internationally as a terrorist group. They are, obviously, absolute Russian propagandists and Russian interrogators. Those people who are behind this they will be brought to responsibility. This is exactly why they understand today that the deoccupation of Chechnya in the next step will lead to bringing to justice those who committed crimes, not only against the Chechen nation, but also in the name of it in other countries.
И повинны в этой ситуации будут привлечены к ответственности. Именно поэтому они и сегодня активничают, понимая, что деоккупация Чечни непосредственно призовет, последующим шагом будет призвать к ответу тех, кто совершали преступления. Не только против чеченского народа, но и от имени чеченского народа в других государствах.
Do you think other nations inside of Russian Federation will also start to fight for their freedom?
Все будет зависеть от того, опять-таки, ключ.
It will all depend on Chechnya. This is the key to solving or to destroy the Russian Empire. The key is Chechnya. The nations who are looking at their possible freedom and that have the will to liberate themselves will orient themselves on Chechnya because we were the first to establish our own state, but we were sold by the international community. If the world today rethinks its attitude towards Chechens and the Chechen statehood, it will guarantee that other nations will follow our example and they will feel and know that they will not be left alone with this imperial monster which has been suppressing them for ages.
Их не оставят один на один вот с этим имперским монстром, который подавляет эти народы уже веками.
Do you think that Kadyrov can just say to Putin, okay, I don't want to be with you no more, and he would maybe fight for independent Chechnya?
No, never ever. No. No.
This was the Political Periscope. The podcast is released every Thursday at 7 p.m.